Hello, it's Ray Wheatley. I'm here with former light middleweight champion, Johnny Layton. How are you, John?
Good, Ray. Good, mate. How are you?
Very good, John. John, just like to talk about your career, mate. You had 71 fights. You fought them all, mate. And, you did, as I say, 1977, you won the Australian light middleweight title. Mate, can you tell me if you had any amateur fights?
Yeah, Ray. When I was about 11, 12, with Gui Pusi YC.
Mm-hmm.
I went over one time. We were training with Jeff Malcolm. As a kid, he went to my same school. And we just started training there, and yeah, that's how I got involved in that part of it.
So how many amateur fights did you have?
I had about 6 or 7.
And Bobby Dunnett was one of your trainers, right?
Yeah, Bobby used to come over at different times, train us.
And mate, so anyway, as a professional, you decide to turn professional on February the 13th, 1974. You win a 4-rounder over Young Hassan. You weighed in at light middleweight, 153 pounds. Tell me about that fight with Young Hassan.
Well, that was my first fight, as you say. It was a packed house at Northville. I was nervous. I went in to sit down, I weighed in. Got off the weight, saw the doctor, everything like that. I'm sitting down. Then they called Young Hassan. He took his top off and he was cut right up. And I thought, geez, I wonder who this bloke's fighting. And then they said his name, and I went, oh, me.
So he was in pretty good nick, eh?
Yeah, he was very fit.
John, so in 74, you go up to Queensland and fight a guy by the name of Ian Looker. He was a very good fighter. He had 38 fights under his belt. You get the decision. The main event that night is Hector Thompson versus Jimmy Hare. But you get Des Crabb, the referee, gives you the pat. The end of 6 good rounds, action rounds.
Ian wasn't impressed.
Ian Looker wasn't happy. Tell me about what happened.
Well, mate, I thought there was a big stink at the end of the fight. The police were called. I went to the dressing rooms and stuff like that. Des Crabb showed his card. He gave me the first 4 rounds. In them days, it was a 5-point must system.
That's right.
He gave me the first 4 rounds, 5-4. Yeah. 5th round even. The 6th round, look, I got 5-3. So I still having 2 points in front. Yeah, there was.
It was well-deserved decision, but he wasn't happy with it. Looker, he put a right hand on Des Crabb's chin.
And Des went straight back at him.
He fired up all right, didn't he, for a referee, Des Crabb?
Yeah.
Yeah, he went well.
He let him go.
So that fight's on YouTube, mate, if anyone wants to watch it. It's a really good one to watch. Now, also in 74, you're in 10 rounds, you're fighting 10 rounders. You fight Benny Holt. George Barnes is a referee. Benny gets disqualified in round 7. Tell me about that fight.
Yeah, Benny is a good fighter, very good fighter. Very fit, always fit. He was trained by his dad. Different times his brothers were in his corner.
Yeah.
And always fit. Just got into a clinch a couple of times, and one time he threw me out of the clinch, and I went over his shoulder and banged my head on the floor, and Des Crabb went, all right, that's it, disqualified.
Yeah, Georgie Barnes, eh?
Yeah.
He didn't muck around, George. He didn't stick to the rules.
George Barnes, sorry.
George Barnes, yeah. So you fight Benny Holt a few times, and he was a very clever boxer, as you say.
Yeah.
In 75, you score wins over Steve Carpenter, Ellie Dennis, Richie Brown, Greg Laylaw. You fight 2 very great fighters, Australian fighters, Stevie Dennis and Neil Patel. Tell me about Neil Patel. How good is he?
A very good mover, very classy. A real good mover, Neil Patel.
Yeah, he fought them all. He was Australian champ.
Steve Dennis was a real good puncher.
Then you fought Pierre Mignon, had 26 fights under his belt.
Yeah.
You beat Pierre on points in over 10 rounds. Do you want to tell me about Pierre Mignon?
Yeah, Pierre was pretty good, moved pretty
nice
good.
Boxer?
Yeah.
Any knockdowns in that fight?
Big pardon?
Any knockdowns in that fight?
No.
Then you fight a very good puncher in Phil Kahn. and you had 21 fights under his belt at that time, experience, and you stopped him in 5 rounds. Tell me about that fight with Phil Carr.
It was 3 rounds.
3 rounds, was it?
Yeah, I caught him. He came into me. I hit him with a good hard jab, a left hook, and then a right hand left hook. He went down and got up. I forget the referee who refereed that night, but anyway, he beat the count. And when they refereed box, and then I just went back in non-stop.
You got him?
And hit him with about 5 or 6 good shots.
Because he was a good fighter for the fight. He trained at my gym for the law.
Yeah.
He could punch. And actually, he comes from my area. Then, mate, probably the biggest name you fought, and you pushed him to a draw, was Wally Carr. He'd had 69 fights. He's a Hall of Famer. Tell me about your fight with Wally Carr.
Yeah, Wally was
76.
Wally was a very good fighter, very smart, knew all the moves. But I was really fit for that fight. I run and done everything right.
You got a lot more fights than you at that point.
Yeah, but I just wanted to win.
You force the action non-stop.
Yeah,
Did you give him a breather?
We got a good shower for that fight too. We got about 150 odd bucks or something like that. No, that was at Bankstown Sports, I think.
Sports.
Yeah.
Mate, then a guy you fought a few times, first fight, 1976, you beat Ronnie Sheldon, very good fighter, over 10 rounds. Tell me about that first fight with Ronnie Sheldon.
Yeah, the first fight was in Wollongong. Hector Thompson fought the main event.
Rossidi?
That's right.
Rossidi, yeah.
Yeah. And it was Rossidi. A good fight too. And with Ronnie, that was a good fight. He's a good puncher, very fit.
Tall, rangy guy like you, bet your height.
Yeah. But could punch a lot harder.
Good.
He was a good whacker.
Nice guy, Ronnie.
Lovely
bloke. Hope he's doing well. Now, mate, the biggest night of your life in boxing, the night you won the title, your match with Torqueno Marcos, 11 fights under his belt, and you stopped Torqueno Marcos in 9 rounds to win the Australian light middleweight crown. Tell me about that fight, please, John.
Well, that fight, Torqueno knocked me down. I think the 2nd or 3rd round. I got up and I just boxed him. He was strong kept throwing punches for the full 2 minutes, but then the last minute it was a 3-minute round fight, he'd tire, and that's when I'd finish on top of him and I'd catch him.
You're in great shape?
Yeah, I'd catch him.
Who trained you for that fight?
Ern McQuillan.
Ern McQuillan had you for that fight?
Ernie McQuillan, yeah.
Did Ern McQuillan have you all those fights?
No. I started off with Roy Carroll. After Roy Carroll, I went to Ern McQuillan.
Right up to Torqueno Marcos, eh?
Yeah. And I
was with him when you won the Australian title.
Yeah.
Well, you would have had great sparring down there at Ern McQuillan's gym.
The best. I sparred plenty around
Mundine?
With Tony Mundine. Both
Paul
Moore and Alan sparred with both those guys. Al Koravu, Sanatigi Quata.
Right.
You know what, mate?
Koravu's brother.
Yeah, they had everyone was there, mate. You know what I mean? It was never.
So you had the cream of the crop. Is that probably the fittest you've been in your career? Do you think?
Mate. That was
because you had such great
everyone
sparring
there, and even young Ernie McQuillan. He'd pick me up before a fight early of the morning to make me run. Yeah, a lovely bloke.
Beautiful bloke. You don't fight real frequently during 78, 79. In 1980, you travel to New Zealand, fight a very tough cruiserweight by the name of Alex Sewer. Alex Sewer would later beat Tony Mundine, on Tony Mundine's last opponent. But you fight him and push him the full 10 rounds. Tell me about your bout with Alex Sewer.
Alex Sewer was another good puncher. He had me down, I think, he broke my nose in the second round, had me down in the third round. No, sorry. Knocked me down in the second, broke my nose in the third, and he beat me on points. It was 10-3.
It was a great fight. Now, Ross Eady was with you. He fought on the same bill.
Ross Eady, he fought Monty Beetham.
And Lou Cruz, He fought.
Lou Cruz was
over
on
the same bill as well.
Yeah.
Remember, I picked you up at the airport. And Johnny Wright took you over there.
Yeah.
Johnny Wright took you over there, mate. Okay, you're back in Sydney, and you fight Jim Carew. Very tough guy. Had 11 fights under his belt. Tell me about your first fight, 8-rounder with Jim Carew.
That went the distance, and it was non-stop throughout the fight. He kept coming towards me. He didn't stop throwing punches, and it was a good hard fight.
He was a tough nut, Jim Carew. Lovely bloke living up at Ballina. Greg Hickey.
Yeah, that's right.
Greg Hickey.
Yeah.
83. You fight an 8-rounder with Con O'Connor at Marrickville. Tell me about the fight with Con O'Connor. I was there. You won that fight.
Yeah, that was Con just kept coming non-stop. He was a very fit fighter.
He was fit, yeah.
Super fit, and didn't stop throwing punches. The referee thought he knocked me down in 7th round or 8th round, I think, but I went through the ropes. It was a slip, but he
said... The counter's knocked down?
Yeah, he said I still went down.
Who was the ref, remember? 83.
It's on the tip of my tongue. He used to always train at Roy Carroll's. He'd go to Roy Carroll's a lot.
Doesn't matter, mate. Then, not long after that, you fight a return fight for the New South Wales title, you and Con.
Yeah.
It's a war.
Yeah,
a good shower. That fight ends up in a draw.
Yeah.
12 rounds.
Yeah.
Tell me about that fight.
That was another hard, tough fight. Con kept coming non-stop. And I thought he might have just got the decision. But it was, they gave it a draw.
Yeah. Not long after that, you fight him again, the third fight with Con O'Connor with the New South Wales light heavyweight title on the line. You lose a close decision over 12. Tell me about that fight.
Well, that fight was another tough fight, but I thought I just did enough to get the fight that night.
It was controversial, I remember.
Yeah.
The decision.
And but they give it a Con.
But then you fight another big name fighter, very tough guy, Jeff Pete, 1983.
Yeah, Jeff, very tough.
Yeah,
very
Jeff.
Tough, very fit.
You were buddies. I mean, you were buddies, but you weren't buddies in the ring, mate.
Nah, that's it, mate.
You punched the crap out of one another.
That's it, but
I was there for
mates
that
after it.
Yeah, that was a war.
Yeah.
That was a war. That was Marrickville.
Yeah. Ended up a draw, I think.
Then I take one of my boys down to fight you. Mick Ambrose.
Yeah,
Mick. Been an Australian amateur champion. You stopped Mick in 4 rounds. Tell me about your fight with Mick Ambrose.
Mick was a pretty good mover too.
Good amateur, so
yeah, and I think I got him with a couple of fast punches, and I think I cut his eye. I think it was with Mick where he was got a cut eye.
Yeah, good fight. Mate, another very good fighter you beat over in '84, Daniel Saylor.
Yeah.
Cruiserweight fight.
He could punch.
You beat him over 10 rounds.
Yeah.
He hurt you at all during that fight?
Yeah.
He outboxed him, right?
Yeah. A lot of the punches I made him miss, but the ones that landed, I felt he was a good puncher.
Now, mate, one of the Australian greats in the heavyweight division, Craig Peterson. You fight him in your last fight up on the Gold Coast. I happened to be up there. Me and my wife came along and watched you fight Craig Peterson. Craig Peterson would later beat the world-rated Alex Stewart in the USA. He beat the world-rated Bert Cooper. He beat Jimmy Thunder. and he lost in his last fight to Chris Bird, who was the world heavyweight champion. I actually was a supervisor the night Chris Bird won his heavyweight title from Evander Holyfield. He strapped the belt on Chris Bird. I know how good he was. He fought Craig Peterson. Now, tell me about your fight with Craig Peterson. Those 6 rounds. Now, I'll just bring this up. You had an injury at work, I think.
Yeah.
And you'd lost a finger.
Nearly
Lost a finger. And it wasn't. Yeah. There you go. I remember when all that happened. Now, tell me all about that, please. In the fight.
Well, they said I would never ever fight again. Even now, I lost all the feeling in the hand.
So I was very surprised that night. I didn't even know you were fighting. You turned up fighting Craig Peterson.
The fight come up and I said, yeah, take it. I took it. Trained, but Craig was been fighting regular and made for a big fellow. He could move, a very good mover, and he could punch a right too.
Oh yeah. Well, he ended up, unfortunately, died under tragic circumstances in the USA.
Very sad.
Still when he was fighting. But you've got the distinction of fighting one of the greatest heavyweights Australia's ever produced. Now, John, later on you start working around clubs and you're a bouncer at clubs. And mate, you end up getting hit over the head one night with someone hits you over the head with a chair.
Still,
causes bad problems. You go to hospital. Did they release you from hospital the first time?
No, what happened, the first time they released me.
Yeah.
But what happened, I got whacked over the head there, and I just had a bump and a little bit of blood. But what happened, it bled inside and formed a clot right near the brain. Anyway, on the Tuesday, I went to train the kids at Glebe. Then after that, I got in the car. And as I started the car, my head spun. So I turned the motor off, the engine off, and went across to Bradley O'Toole's place. And his wife Jan answered the door. She said, yeah, we're going to John, how are you? I said, darling, I feel a bit crook. Have you got an aspal or something? She said, would you like the coffee? I said, yeah, tar. Then my daughter was going to ring my mother's place at Glebe. I said, Jan, could you ring Mum and tell her I'll be a little bit late? She said, yes. What's your mum's number? Everything went, I couldn't remember people's names, where I was. I started vomiting. And I couldn't remember anyone. Anyway, they took me home. Then from there, they took me to Balmain Hospital. They kept me for 2 hours, I think. Sent me home. The next day I was worse. Jason, my son, rang his doctor to come down and see me. His doctor rang an ambulance straight away. They took me up. No, sorry. My friend called in and took me to the hospital. Then Harry Harris drove me.
Harry Harris, yeah.
We got to the hospital. When they done the x-rays and that, and when they saw the size of the clot, they couldn't operate straight away because they had to sort of shrink the clot. They thought anyone with that sort of injury, they couldn't believe how I didn't come in a wheelchair or ambulance. Because I'd been training all the time and kept myself in good nick.
Yeah.
Anyway, when they did the operation, I come out of it. People with family and friends were there to see me. My sister-in-law, they asked me a question. I couldn't remember anything right. They said, do you remember this girl here? I said, I can't remember her name, but she's a good sword. And then they said, what about Sandra? And I said, I can't remember her name, but I know I love her. Then after that, I had to go to a speech therapist at Prince Alfred for a few weeks, for so many months. Then they sent me up to Top Ryde to the brain injury unit. I went there for nearly 3 years. I couldn't even say window, I couldn't say floor, I couldn't say ceiling, everything. And I had to relearn all that.
3 years to get to
Nearly 3 years. And to this day, I still make mistakes with things. I know what I want to say, but sometimes, yeah.
What year was that did it happen?
That happened in 79. Hang on, 89. 89.
Okay. We 1989, we were both on the Don Lane radio show, 2K1.
Yeah.
And, remember that? We talked about bouncers? Yeah.
We went into town.
No, it was in Parramatta.
Pal was a Parramatta.
Parramatta, yeah, to Parramatta. Anyway, John, always good to see you, mate. Congratulations on a great boxing career, mate. You've got a lovely family now, Sandra.
Thank you, mate. Thank
Children,
you very much.
grandchildren.
Same with your family.
Yeah. Okay, John, thanks again, mate. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, champ.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, mate.